If the best conversations begin with a smile, maybe the best love stories do too. Ryan Mitchell loosened the collar of his work shirt as he stepped into a quiet neighborhood bar just outside downtown Denver after closing his small auto repair garage for the evening. The scent of fresh coffee mixed with soft country music drifting from hidden speakers, creating the kind of peaceful atmosphere where people came to unwind rather than impress anyone. Ryan rarely visited places like this, but after spending the day replacing transmissions and helping his 9-year-old daughter Emma finish a science project, he thought one quiet drink before heading home might be exactly what he needed. He noticed one empty stool at the polished oak counter beside a woman dressed in an elegant navy blue coat. A white cane rested neatly against the bar beside her chair, yet her posture carried calm confidence instead of hesitation. Ryan smiled politely before taking the seat. "Looks like the only open spot left." The woman turned slightly toward his voice and returned a warm smile that somehow reached beyond her eyes. "Then I am glad you found it." Ryan chuckled as the bartender poured him an iced tea. "Well, judging by the cane, you must be my blind date." For one silent heartbeat, he immediately wondered if the joke had been a mistake. Then the woman laughed with genuine delight, the sound bright enough to make several nearby customers glance over with curious smiles. "I certainly hope so," she replied. "Otherwise, this is going to become the most disappointing evening either of us has ever had." Ryan laughed with visible relief. "Fair enough. I am Ryan." She extended her hand without uncertainty. "Claire Harrison." Her handshake was confident, steady, and completely natural. There was no awkwardness, no invitation for sympathy, and no trace of self-pity. Ryan appreciated that immediately. They spoke about ordinary things first. Favorite coffee shops. The strange Colorado weather that could change 3 times before lunch. The endless construction downtown. Claire admitted she loved listening to baseball games on the radio because the announcers painted pictures with words. Ryan confessed he could never cook pancakes without burning at least one. "So your daughter gets the good pancakes after the practice one?" Claire asked playfully. Ryan blinked. "How did you know I have a daughter?" Claire smiled softly. "You have mentioned her 3 times in the last 10 minutes. Parents always carry the people they love into every conversation." Ryan leaned back, surprised by how easily she noticed details most people missed. The bartender quietly refilled their drinks before whispering to another employee, "She actually sounds happier tonight." Ryan paid no attention because he was too busy listening to Claire describe the sound of rain against city windows and how every season carried its own music if people slowed down long enough to hear it. For the first time in years, Ryan realized he was not having a conversation with someone he felt obligated to encourage. Instead, he felt like he was the one quietly learning to see the world through someone else's remarkable perspective, completely unaware that the woman smiling across from him led one of the largest technology companies in the country, and that one simple joke had just changed the direction of both their lives forever. Ryan left the neighborhood bar with an unfamiliar sense of peace that stayed with him all the way home. The quiet streets of Denver glowed beneath scattered streetlights as he pulled into the driveway of the small house he had worked years to afford. Before he even reached the front porch, the front door swung open and 9-year-old Emma hurried outside wearing oversized socks and a bright smile. "You are home." Ryan laughed as she wrapped her arms around him. "I promised I would not be late." Emma looked up curiously. "You seem happier." Ryan unlocked the front door before shrugging with a smile. "I met someone interesting." Emma followed him into the kitchen, where tomorrow's school lunch still waited to be packed. "Interesting good or interesting weird?" Ryan chuckled. "Definitely good." Their evening settled into the familiar routine that had quietly held their little family together for years. Ryan packed sandwiches while Emma carefully placed apple slices into reusable containers. Together, they washed the dinner dishes left from the previous night before reviewing spelling words at the kitchen table. The house was modest. The furniture showed signs of honest use, and nothing about their lives appeared extraordinary, yet every room reflected patience, responsibility, and quiet love. After Emma went upstairs to brush her teeth, Ryan paused beside a framed photograph of his late wife, Megan. He gently straightened the picture before whispering the same words he had spoken every evening since she passed away 4 years earlier. "We are doing all right." He never asked for life to become easier. He only hoped he was raising Emma the way they had once dreamed together. The following morning began before sunrise at Mitchell Auto Repair, where Ryan spent his day helping customers who depended on reliable transportation to keep their own families moving forward. He treated every customer with the same respect whether they drove an aging pickup truck or a brand-new luxury sedan. His longtime employee, Ben, noticed Ryan smiling while replacing brake pads. "Somebody finally bought a winning lottery ticket?" Ryan laughed. "No." Ben folded his arms. "Then somebody must have caught your attention." Ryan shook his head, trying to dismiss the thought, yet Claire's warm laughter continued echoing quietly in his memory. It was not her confidence that stayed with him. It was the remarkable way she never asked anyone to feel sorry for her. She simply expected to be treated like everyone else. Late that afternoon, while Ryan finished closing the garage, he found a neatly folded business card tucked beneath the windshield wiper of his truck. There was no company logo across the front, only elegant lettering that read, "Claire Harrison," followed by a phone number embossed in silver. Beneath it, written by hand, were 7 simple words that made him smile before he even realized it. "Coffee tastes better after honest conversations. Call anytime." Ryan looked at the handwritten note several times before carefully slipping the business card into his wallet. 2 days passed before he finally gathered the courage to call. When Claire answered, her warm voice immediately carried the same calm confidence he remembered from the neighborhood bar. "I was beginning to think you did not like coffee," she teased gently. Ryan laughed. "I was trying to think of something intelligent to say." Claire smiled through the phone. "That sounds exhausting. Why do not we simply have coffee instead?" They agreed to meet Saturday morning at a quiet cafe overlooking Washington Park. Ryan arrived a few minutes early, but Claire was already seated near the front window with a steaming cup resting beside her folded white cane. She recognized his footsteps before he spoke. "You walk like someone who spends all day solving problems with his hands," she said with an amused smile. Ryan sat down, surprised once again by how naturally she noticed details other people overlooked. "Is that a compliment?" Claire nodded. "It is." Their conversation flowed as comfortably as it had the first evening. Ryan spoke about restoring old pickup trucks, coaching Emma's youth softball team, and teaching his daughter that character mattered more than appearances. Claire listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions that never felt forced. She shared stories about her love of classical piano, long walks through city parks, and the way she memorized places by sound instead of sight. Ryan noticed something else as the morning unfolded. Every few minutes, another customer quietly greeted Claire with unusual respect, yet nobody interrupted their conversation for long. She always answered kindly before turning her full attention back to him. He admired that simple courtesy without realizing there was a reason complete strangers recognized her. After finishing their coffee, they stepped outside into the gentle spring sunshine. A young boy accidentally dropped several books across the sidewalk while hurrying toward the library. Before anyone else reacted, Ryan immediately knelt to gather the scattered books while Claire calmly spoke to the child, helping him slow his breathing after he apologized over and over. "Accidents happen," she assured him softly. "You are doing just fine." The boy smiled with visible relief before thanking both of them and continuing on his way. Ryan looked at Claire with quiet admiration. "You have a gift for making people feel comfortable." Claire smiled thoughtfully. "Maybe because I know what it feels like when people assume they should be uncomfortable around me." Ryan answered without hesitation. "I have never thought that." Claire turned her face slightly toward his voice, and for the first time in many years, she believed him completely. Neither of them noticed a black sedan parked discreetly across the street where 2 professionally dressed employees watched from inside. One quietly lowered a phone after saying only a few words. "She is smiling again. It has been a long time since we have seen that." The weeks that followed settled into a comfortable rhythm neither Ryan nor Claire tried to define. They met for coffee on quiet Saturday mornings, walked through parks where birdsong replaced awkward silence, and discovered that the easiest conversations were often about the smallest moments in life. Ryan never reached for Claire's arm unless she asked. Claire never expected special treatment simply because she could not see. Instead, they learned one another's pace. And that simple respect quietly became the strongest foundation either of them had known in years. One Thursday afternoon, Claire asked if she could stop by Ryan's garage after finishing a meeting across town. "Only if you do not mind the smell of motor oil," Ryan joked over the phone. Claire laughed. After corporate boardrooms, that actually sounds refreshing. When she arrived, Ryan greeted her with the same relaxed smile he always wore. There were no curious stares because he had already told his employees only one thing. A friend is visiting today. Ben welcomed Claire warmly before returning to work without making a fuss over her white cane. She smiled to herself, quietly appreciating how ordinary everything felt. Ryan guided her through the garage, describing the classic pickup truck he was restoring for a retired firefighter. Claire rested one hand lightly against the smooth metal fender while Ryan explained every detail with genuine enthusiasm. "You make it sound beautiful," she smiled. "Maybe because I think it is." She tilted her head playfully. "I think you have a habit of seeing beauty where other people only see work." Later that afternoon, Emma arrived after school carrying her backpack almost as large as she was. Ryan introduced them with a gentle smile. "Emma, this is my friend Claire." Emma stepped forward without hesitation. "Hi, Claire. Dad says you like coffee, but I think hot chocolate is better." Claire laughed softly. "That might be the smartest opinion I have heard all week." Emma grinned. "Do you like pancakes too?" Ryan could not help smiling because the question sounded exactly like something only his daughter would ask. "Very much," Claire answered. "Especially blueberry pancakes." Emma nodded with complete satisfaction. "Then we are probably going to get along." There were no uncomfortable questions about Claire's blindness, no hesitant curiosity, and no sympathy. Emma simply accepted her exactly as she accepted everyone else who treated people kindly. As the afternoon faded into evening, the three of them shared homemade cookies in the small office beside the garage while Ryan brewed fresh coffee. Watching Emma excitedly describe her science fair project, Claire felt something quietly shift inside her heart. For years, people had admired her accomplishments before they ever tried to know her. Sitting inside a modest repair shop, listening to a little girl explain why volcanoes fascinated her, Claire realized she had finally found a place where nobody cared about titles, wealth, or limitations. They cared only that she had come, stayed, and shared another ordinary afternoon together. Without realizing it, all three of them had already begun creating the kind of memories that quietly become the strongest parts of a family's story. The following Saturday arrived with clear skies and the first warm breeze of early summer. Ryan closed the garage at noon and surprised Emma by announcing they were taking blueberry pancake batter to Washington Park for an outdoor picnic. Emma immediately guessed the real reason. "Claire is going to be there, is she not?" Ryan tried to sound casual as he loaded the picnic basket into his pickup truck. "She might have mentioned she was free this afternoon." Emma grinned knowingly. "That means yes." Claire was already waiting beneath a large cottonwood tree when they arrived, listening to the distant laughter of children playing near the lake. The moment she heard Emma's footsteps racing across the grass, her face brightened. "I was hoping someone would save me from eating an entire basket of fruit by myself." Emma laughed. "We brought pancakes. I think we solved that problem." The afternoon unfolded with effortless warmth. Ryan cooked pancakes on a portable griddle while Emma insisted on arranging strawberries into funny faces across every plate. Claire laughed so often that even nearby families smiled without knowing why. After lunch, Emma suggested they play a guessing game. She picked objects from the picnic blanket and invited Claire to identify them by touch alone. Claire correctly recognized a baseball glove, a wooden spoon, a pine cone, and even Ryan's favorite pocket knife simply by feeling its worn handle. Emma clapped with excitement after every answer. "You are amazing." Claire smiled gently. "I have just had a lot of practice paying attention." Ryan watched quietly as the two of them continued talking. Emma never treated Claire's blindness like something unusual. Instead, she seemed fascinated by the different ways Claire experienced the world. "What is your favorite color?" Emma finally asked. Ryan worried for a moment that the question might become uncomfortable, but Claire answered with peaceful honesty. "Before I lost my sight, it was deep blue. I still remember it. It reminds me of calm water and wide skies." Emma thought carefully before slipping her small hand into Claire's. "Whenever we see a really pretty blue sky, I will describe it to you." Claire swallowed quietly, touched by a promise offered with such innocent sincerity. "I would like that very much." Later, as Emma wandered a few yards away to feed ducks along the shoreline with Ryan watching nearby, Claire turned toward his voice. "Your daughter has never asked me what happened to my eyes." Ryan smiled softly. Emma believes people should tell their own stories whenever they are ready. Claire remained silent for several moments before speaking again. Most adults could learn from a 9-year-old. Ryan laughed quietly. She teaches me something new almost every day. As the afternoon sun drifted lower across the lake, Claire realized that the peaceful happiness surrounding her had nothing to do with expensive restaurants, executive meetings, or impressive accomplishments. It came from blueberry pancakes, a little girl's honest heart, and a father whose quiet kindness never changed no matter who happened to be standing beside him. For the first time in many years, Claire found herself hoping that this simple afternoon would not be remembered as something special because it was rare, but because it might quietly become the beginning of an ordinary life she had never believed was possible. Monday morning arrived with the familiar rhythm of engines starting, tools clinking against steel, and customers pulling into Mitchell Auto Repair before the coffee had even finished brewing. Ryan was replacing the brakes on an old family SUV when a sleek black sedan rolled quietly into the parking lot. He glanced up only long enough to recognize Claire stepping out with her white cane folded neatly beside her. She smiled the moment she heard the sound of his footsteps crossing the concrete floor. "I hope I am not interrupting." Ryan wiped his hands on a clean shop towel before answering with an easy grin. "Only if you consider making Monday a little better an interruption." Claire laughed softly. "Then I will stay." Ben welcomed her with the same relaxed kindness he always showed every visitor before returning to his work. Nobody whispered. Nobody stared. Claire noticed that small gift immediately. Ryan invited her to sit inside the office while he finished the repair, but she shook her head. "If you do not mind, I would rather stay out here. I like listening." Ryan looked surprised. "Listening to a repair shop?" Claire nodded. "Every place has its own music. The air compressor has one rhythm. Your impact wrench has another. Even the way everyone speaks tells me whether this is a happy place or a stressful one." Ryan smiled as he returned to work. "And what does this place sound like today?" Claire tilted her head for a moment before answering. "It sounds like people who respect one another." Her words stayed with Ryan long after the conversation moved on. When lunchtime arrived, Emma stopped by the garage because school had ended early for teacher conferences. She immediately spotted Claire and hurried over carrying a small paper bag. "I saved one for you." Claire accepted the bag with curious delight. "What is inside?" "Chocolate chip cookies," Emma replied proudly. "Dad only ate one, which is how I knew he really wanted you to have the rest." Ryan laughed from across the garage. "I suddenly feel very misunderstood." Claire smiled as she opened the bag and breathed in the sweet aroma. "They smell wonderful." Emma lowered her voice with playful seriousness. "They taste even better." While the three of them shared cookies around the small office table, a sharply dressed man stepped quietly through the front entrance. He paused the moment he noticed Claire laughing with Ryan and Emma. "Ms. Harrison," he said respectfully. "The board meeting begins in 45 minutes. Ryan looked toward Claire with mild confusion. "Board meeting?" Claire let out a small sigh before standing. "I suppose there is something I should have explained eventually." The man hesitated, clearly uncertain whether he had interrupted something important. Claire turned toward Ryan with the same calm smile she had worn from the very first evening they met. "I never wanted my job to become the first thing people noticed about me." Ryan answered gently without the slightest change in his expression. "It still is not." For a brief moment Claire stood perfectly still, quietly realizing that every successful title she had earned over the years suddenly felt far less meaningful than one simple sentence spoken by a man who still saw her exactly the same way he had from the beginning. Ryan expected the revelation to change something. Yet the following Saturday he arrived at their usual coffee shop carrying the same relaxed smile and 2 blueberry muffins because he remembered Claire liked them warm. She was already waiting on the outdoor patio, listening to the fountain nearby as morning birds filled the air with quiet songs. When she heard his footsteps, she smiled, though there was uncertainty hidden beneath her usual confidence. "I almost thought you might not come," she admitted softly. Ryan placed the paper bag on the table before taking his seat. "You invited me for coffee." I said yes. Being the chief executive officer of a technology company does not cancel that. Claire let out a gentle laugh, but emotion lingered behind it. Most people act differently after they find out. Ryan stirred his coffee thoughtfully. "Should I suddenly start talking about quarterly reports instead of pancakes?" Claire laughed harder than she had in days. "Please do not." Ryan smiled. Then I think we are fine. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt comfortable rather than awkward. Finally, Claire asked the question that had quietly followed her throughout her career. Why are you not impressed? Ryan looked at her with calm honesty. I am impressed that you built a successful company. I am even more impressed that you remember the names of waiters, laugh at terrible jokes, and make a little girl feel like the smartest person in the park. Those things matter more to me. Claire lowered her head slightly as emotion caught her by surprise. For years she had received admiration for achievements, wealth, and leadership, yet almost nobody had spoken about the qualities she valued most. Later that afternoon, Claire accepted Ryan's invitation to walk through a nearby farmer's market before picking Emma up from a weekend art class. Vendors greeted families with cheerful voices while the scent of fresh bread and roasted coffee drifted through the open-air booths. Emma ran toward them carrying a colorful painting of three people standing beneath a bright blue sky. Look what I made. Ryan admired the picture. That is beautiful. Claire smiled. Tell me about it. Emma pointed to each figure, even though she knew Claire could not see them. That is Dad. That is me. And that is you because you make our Saturdays happier. Claire stood completely still. You painted me? Emma nodded. Without hesitation. Families are not only the people who live in the same house. Sometimes they are the people who make you feel safe. Ryan quietly watched tears gather at the corners of Claire's eyes. She reached for Emma's small hand and held it gently. In that simple moment, surrounded by ordinary people enjoying an ordinary weekend, Claire realized that Ryan had never treated her like a successful executive, a woman with a disability, or someone who needed to prove her worth. He had simply welcomed her into his life with quiet dignity, and somehow that ordinary kindness had become the rarest gift she had ever received. Autumn slowly settled over Denver, painting the city with shades of amber and gold, and before long the ordinary rhythm of Ryan's life included something that once seemed impossible. Claire became part of it without either of them forcing the change. Some evenings, she stopped by the garage simply to listen while Ryan finished his final repair of the day. Other afternoons, they met at the neighborhood cafe where the staff already knew their usual order before either of them spoke. Emma liked to joke that the coffee shop should give them their own table because they visited so often. One quiet Friday evening, after Emma had gone to a sleepover with her closest friend, Ryan invited Claire to walk through the botanical gardens during a special autumn light display. Soft music floated through the trees while thousands of tiny lights shimmered among colorful leaves, creating a peaceful atmosphere that seemed designed for quiet conversations rather than hurried words. Ryan described everything they passed with gentle detail. He told her about the maple leaves glowing like copper, the small bridge crossing a pond covered with floating reflections, and the lanterns hanging from old branches like stars that had decided to rest among the trees for the night. Claire listened carefully before smiling. You always describe places differently than everyone else. Ryan looked at her curiously. How so? She laughed softly. Most people tell me what things look like. You tell me how they feel. Ryan considered her words for a moment before answering. Maybe, because that is how I remember the important moments in my own life. They continued walking until they reached a quiet wooden bench overlooking the water. The sounds of distant laughter faded into the background, leaving only the gentle breeze and the steady rhythm of the fountain nearby. Claire folded her hands together as though gathering courage she had postponed for years. There is something I have wanted to tell you. Ryan turned toward her voice without interrupting. After I lost my sight, people became afraid of saying the wrong thing. They measured every word. They apologized when no apology was needed. Some admired my career more than they cared about me. Others only saw someone who needed help. She smiled faintly. Then you walked into a neighborhood bar and made the worst joke I have heard in years. Ryan covered his face with one hand and laughed. I still cannot believe I said that. Claire reached across the bench until her hand found his. I can, because it was honest. You spoke to me like I was simply another person sitting beside you. You did not know who I was. You did not know what I had accomplished. You only knew there was someone beside you who might enjoy laughing. Ryan gently held her hand. That is still all I know. Claire's voice softened almost to a whisper. Ryan, I cannot see your face. I cannot tell you the color of your eyes or the expression you wear when you smile. Ryan answered with peaceful certainty. That is all right. You already see the parts of me that most people spend a lifetime overlooking. Claire smiled through quiet tears, understanding that the words she had been searching for were no longer necessary. Sometimes love does not begin the moment two people meet. Sometimes it begins the moment they finally realize they have already been walking toward the same future together all along. 1 year later, the little neighborhood bar still looked exactly the same. The polished oak counter reflected the warm lights overhead. The old country songs still drifted through hidden speakers, and the same bartender smiled the moment Ryan pushed open the door. "Back again?" he asked with a grin. Ryan laughed softly. "I owe this place more than I can ever repay." A familiar voice answered from behind him. "I was hoping you would say that." Claire stepped inside with her white cane resting comfortably at her side, wearing the same quiet confidence that had first captured his attention. She no longer arrived alone. Emma hurried in beside her carrying a small bakery box filled with homemade cookies she insisted on sharing with everyone who worked there. The bartender accepted one with a smile before shaking his head in amazement. It all started because of one terrible joke. Ryan covered his face with mock embarrassment. "Please do not remind me." Claire reached for his hand, laughing with the same joyful warmth that had filled the room the first night they met. "I hope nobody ever lets you forget it." Life had changed in countless quiet ways since that evening. Ryan still owned Mitchell Auto Repair, still believed every customer deserved honesty before profit, and still ended every workday in time to eat dinner with the people he loved. Claire continued leading her technology company with calm determination, but she no longer allowed endless meetings to consume every hour of her life. She discovered that success became far more meaningful when there was someone waiting to hear about her day rather than simply read another business headline. Emma often visited Claire's office after school, where employees greeted her like family instead of a guest. More than once she proudly announced that she intended to become both an engineer and a baker because she saw no reason a person had to choose only one dream. Claire always encouraged her with the same words. "The world needs people who build things with both their hands and their hearts." That autumn afternoon, the three of them left the bar and walked slowly toward a nearby park where golden leaves drifted gently across the sidewalks. Ryan described the brilliant colors surrounding them just as he always had. Claire listened with peaceful contentment before smiling. "You still describe the world the same way." Ryan squeezed her hand gently. "Because it still feels beautiful." Claire stopped walking for a moment. "Do you know something?" Ryan turned toward her voice. "What is that?" She smiled with quiet gratitude. "The day we met, everyone believed I was the woman who could not see." She rested her free hand over his. "But you taught me that sight was never the thing I was missing. I only needed someone who looked at me without fear, without pity, and without caring about my title." Ryan answered softly. "And you reminded me that hope sometimes walks into ordinary places when we least expect it." Emma slipped her small hands into both of theirs as they continued down the tree-lined path together. The setting sun painted the sky with deep shades of blue, the very color Claire still remembered from long ago, and Ryan quietly described every detail until she smiled as though she could see it herself. Some love stories begin with perfect words. Theirs began with an imperfect joke, a shared laugh, and two strangers who chose kindness before assumptions. In the end, it was never wealth, success, or even eyesight that brought them together. It was quiet dignity, honest hearts, and the simple courage to truly see another person. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not finding someone extraordinary. Sometimes it is discovering that an ordinary act of respect can become the beginning of a lifetime filled with grace, second chances, and a place that finally feels like home.